Hi, this is Garden Girl Nancy Damiano with this week's episode of Scrap Your Stash, brought to you by 2peasinabucket.com. On this week's episode, we're going to explore mini albums. Now, I just made this mini album on a vacation that we recently came back from. Some of the reasons I love mini albums: it's a project with a definite beginning and end, and I love that. And I also love that you can hold basically a snapshot of an entire vacation in just one small book. It's one of my favorite ways to tell a story, and I like to work with a smaller canvas sometimes. It's a nice break from the 12 by 12s that I usually do. I chose to use the capture line by Basic Gray. Now, when I first saw this line, the first thing that I thought was Vacation Mini. There's something about the colors, this sort of minty aqua and the bright orange that just reminded me of travel and islands. So I thought it was perfect for that. It also has this nice office supplies stationery vibe going on, and I have never met a stationery supply that I don't love, so I knew it would be perfect for this project. I also added some of their carte postale, which is their themed vacation line. They match perfectly. And then also I added some Uncharted Waters by Glitz because I needed to add water and beach. I like themed scrapbooking, and so this was the easiest way to do it. Okay, now that we have the products chosen, let me show you something that I do on every trip to collect the journaling. I always bring this smash book with me, and I try to sit down every day and write a little synopsis of the things that happened. Funny stories, an overview, the weather, all kinds of little details. And this makes it so much easier when I come home to fill in the journaling of a mini album. Now, if I don't get to it every day, usually the plane trip back home is when I'll sit down and finish it off. I think we remember the large overview, what we liked about the resort, what we did or didn't like, I guess. But I think the things that we tend to forget are like the little inside family jokes or your favorite spot by the pool or little moments like that. So if you write them down when they're the freshest in your memory, you'll have them. You'll have those little snippets to fill into your scrapbook pages or your mini albums later on. I think that memorabilia is really important in a mini album. I love to add in all those little bits and pieces. I think it makes it really personal. I will usually pack a large manila envelope right in that smash book where I do my journaling. And at the end of every day, I'll empty out my purse of all the little bits and pieces, and I have them in one central spot, and that makes it really easy to organize them. I also like to collect maps, menus, business cards, anything I can get my hands on from the trip. One of my favorite pieces of memorabilia from my childhood is a hotel receipt that my mom saved from Disney World. And I love looking at the prices, the fonts from the 1970s, and even that it was printed on a dot matrix printer makes it vintage, and it's really special to me. So I think holding on to those bits and pieces may be really important in the future. Now let's take a look at the photos. I printed out all of my photos, mostly 4x4 because I knew I was going to make a smaller mini album, a handful of 4x6s, and then my very favorites, I printed them out at home 7x9 because that's the size of my album. Now I divided them up into 5 different chapters. Starting at the top are my beach photos. Then working clockwise, I did restaurants and where we ate, the Everglades. The center bottom is the hotel. And then on the left lower bottom is the pool. Now, those were the major things that we did. This was kind of a short trip and sort of a relaxing trip, so we didn't do a ton of things. You may have more chapters. On the upper left-hand corner are the miscellaneous things that really didn't fit in any of those chapters. So I'll find a way to work those in at the end somehow. I also added right to each chapter the memorabilia. So I'll work on them one pile at a time, just grab everything and go. All right, one last tip on creating a mini album. I gather all the supplies. I make my own kit basically, and I put everything except for the pattern paper into this one red basket. which I have right next to me. And I find that this keeps me from going through my stash of things and digging through things. That takes up a lot of time. So if I have everything in one spot, it just makes the process go that much easier. I know everything in this basket matches either my theme or my colors, and there's more than enough product here to get this album done. Okay, it's time to get started on the project now. The first thing I did was pick out my capture album. I chose it basically for the colors. It has divided tabs, pattern paper, and I'll flip through it really quickly here so you can see it. Great places for journaling. I like that it has a lot of different colors in it. Some paper layering already done for you. I love that navy royal blue. And then these are the divided page protectors. This holds 6 3x3s. Those hold 2 4x6s, and the last are a combination of the two, and then the very last are 7x9. And that's where I'm going to do my photo enlargements. Now I love these die cut sheets. I like to add them because they add a little punch of different shapes and colors. I don't have to pull out my silhouette, and I love this edge and the top 10 list. Always need that on every trip. Great journaling bubbles. I like these cutouts, and so I use these throughout the entire album. Now I'm going to go through all the sheets and decide what order I want each chapter to go in. So in other words, in each chapter I'm going to have a divided page tab, a die cut sheet, a page protector for some pictures, and then a place to journal. Now this is the die cut sheet that I chose to do my title on. I didn't film this portion. I actually did this page at the end of the project, and it just has the date and MI for Marco Island. I just later layered a few bits and pieces from the carte postale line and some flair. I actually recorded 2 chapters, one that has a lot of memorabilia and one that has none. And the remainder of the album I will flip through in photos at the end so you can see how it turned out. Now this page is really still part of the title. This was one of the miscellaneous piles. It's a picture of the plane that I took right before we took off and our boarding passes. And that's something I want to tuck in here. I'm going to layer a few pieces of the pattern paper from Basic Gray's carte postale line. These library pockets are also great. They're also from the same line. I'm going to tuck those boarding passes right in there. And I just chose brighter colors because my base was aqua blue. So orange, yellow, those seem to be the natural choice for this. Once I have all my paper layers down, now I'm looking to embellish. So this is where I look for stickers first because they're my first flat layer. This is Travel Girl from October Afternoon. After I usually will place my stickers, then at that point I start adding dimensional things like flare and enamel dots and all those little bits and pieces that add texture. Now I'll go on over to my left side, and I have a lot of white space in this photo, so it's a great place for a sticker. My flat item and then my dimensional item. And I love that they did that little layering cluster up on the top that came with that die cut sheet. It's still lacking in a few details, so I'm going to add some enamel dots. That's going to give me a little punch of color and a little interesting detail. It still looks a little plain to me, so I'm going to start adding text. I rarely stamp, but I actually do like it in mini albums. I'm going to use these by Blinks of Life. and one is days of the week, and the other one is rate the day. So I'm going to add it right onto the envelope, and you can see right away how it just dresses it up a little bit, and it looks, I think it adds a little handmade touch as well. I'm going to add a layer to the left side because the picture looks a little flat there. So just by adding this little die cut of a calendar makes that photo pop a little bit. Here I'm going to change out the enamel dots a little. I wasn't too happy with the orange. I thought it was a little too matchy. So I ended up using like a dark brown color, and I think they just show up a little bit better. Here I'm going to add a little row from large to small, and then one little detail right inside of that arrow just makes that area pop. And that completes this part of the title page. I am just going to write up at the little top and add my handwriting. I just wrote leaving, and that's it. Now that I've covered both of these spots with my memorabilia and my layers and my photos, I have nowhere to add journaling. And that's where these little pads come in really handy. I love these. I'm going to add them right into the album, and I'm going to use my own handwriting, and I love that I have an entire pad so that every time I mess up or don't like my handwriting, I can just write it over. Okay, let's get started on the very first chapter. This is on the resort. So I have a lot of photos and a lot of memorabilia to add here. The first photo that I'm going to use is one of my favorites of the resort. I added a photo transparency from crepe paper, and that's just to make it stand out from that plain background. Now right on that transparency, I'm going to add the name of the resort. I chose white so it really stand out, and I love how you get 5 different sheets of stickers in this pack. This is from the Capture line. I use it throughout the album. Now that photo needs a little something more, another layer, something to frame out the center of it. There's a lot of greenery that I really don't want to be the focal point. I want that center portion of the resort to be the focal point. And I tried that white frame, but you're going to see here, it really doesn't do anything for the photo. It sort of blends into the background, where this orange one really pops and my eye goes right to the center of that. So that's why I chose that one. These vellum tapes are also, this is from the Carte Postale line. I love how many different washi vellums you get on that one sheet. And I'll layer a few of those to get it onto the transparency, and then a staple just to keep it all together and make sure it doesn't fall out of my book. The next portion is going to be on the left side. That's for my journaling, which I'll add later. And then here are all my photos cut down to 3x3s. And these are inside and outside of the resort. Balcony, a funny family shot there, picture of our room. Just make sure that you have a variety of different shots. If all of these shots were landscape, might get a little monotonous, a little boring. So that's why I change it up. I was short one picture, so I needed something to fit in there, and luckily that die cut pack had something perfect. All of these photos, most of the photos were actually taken with my iPhone this time. I did not lug around my big camera, and I was pretty happy with the results. Now on this side of the page, I'm going to highlight one of my favorite photos. It's of my husband actually doing nothing, which is super unusual for him. He is always on the move. He wants to see everything and do everything, or he's on his BlackBerry. And so I love this one moment that I captured where he was just soaking it in and enjoying himself and relaxing. So I think it's important to capture your family's personality on vacation, whether they become more adventurous or more low-key or those kind of things. I think that makes these kind of mini albums really personal. Here I'm going to play around with a few layers. My title is going to be R&R. And so I thought this huge ampersand, this is from the Glitz, the Uncharted Waters collection. And I love these letters. I used them a lot in this album. These are Amy Tangerine, and they're vellum and see-through, and they're perfect for little touches just like this. Once I have all the layers down, I'm just looking to add a little more stamping. It's a little too flat still. And there's a big empty spot in this lower right hand corner here. I love this arrow. This is from Crepe Paper, the Pier. And the colors and the shape goes well in this spot. And it just takes up a nice empty spot there. I don't need really to see that balcony. Another layer, I'm going to add some vellum tape. It matches the layered die cut card that I have underneath there. The last thing I'll add is an enamel dot, and then I'll staple that big ampersand right on there. I love these vellum tab reinforcements. They add color and shape. And then a spot for my journaling again. Okay, I'm ready to move on to the memorabilia from the hotel. I have quite a bit of it, so there's going to be a big pocket. And I chose this nice polka dotted paper from the Dear Lizzie Lucky Charm collection. Now I just put it down with regular adhesive. Later on, I would go back and use something that's a little heavier because it did start to fall apart. So I used this orange tape, double-sided sticky tape that I like. Just a little bit of decoration on the page. Some vellum washi tape from the Capture line. And these arrows that I love, these are from Two Peas in a Bucket. I've used a bunch. And then just a little few sequins. They just look like little random shells or something to me. That's why I added those. And I'll usually just sprinkle those out and glue them down wherever they land. I'm not too picky about where they go. And I also wanted to write some things, some of my thoughts about the hotel and the charges and things. So that's why I put that in that pocket. Now we're going to move on to the next chapter. This is the beach photos. There's no memorabilia. A lot of pictures, a lot of stories here. I'm going to use the 4x6s and then some of the 3x4s and some of my favorite photos. Now, the photo page, or this page protector, ended up being my title page for this chapter. So I am going to use the vellum letters by Amy Tangerine and just do it right on top of the page protector. And there, through the magic of video, I finished that so quickly. And I just layered one large blocky font and then a very tiny contrasting font. Now to fill up that space in the middle, I wanted something that I would be able to see through. And so I used some of these little circle flags. That was from Glitz, Uncharted Water. And they have a nice beach theme to them. They have anchors and things on them. And that's all I'm going to do on that side. That's enough decoration. I really want the pictures to stand out. I've had this gold chipboard mat from Pink Paisley a long time. And I decided to just add it to the album. I'm not going to do anything else with it. It's just going to be another layer. Here is a picture of my son being silly on the beach. He was using a shell, I think, as a horn. So I wanted to highlight that. And I'm going to add these are some die cut pieces from Glitz Uncharted Waters. I like how the frame lets me see the photo. But there's a lot of white space in this photo, so it doesn't really distract, and it's a lot of nice layers. I'm going to add my handwriting to this page along the right side. So that's why I have everything shifted over to the left like that. I just wanted to write the story of how every day at sunset he ran out to the beach to catch fish and different shells and different things. So that's something we did almost every night. and it's an important part of the story. I put that whale up on some pop dots and just gives it dimension. Lots of pop dots. Now this page, I purposely chose this large 7x9 photo because it had so much blue in it. If the sky had been more green, I would have probably made a different choice. On the left side, I'm layering some pattern paper, and that tissue sheet comes from Glitz Uncharted Waters, and just a frame right underneath. Again, following the beach theme and the feel of that photo, that enlarged photo, it was one of my favorite spots on that beach. So that's why it's highlighted. I used a ton of this vellum tape throughout the entire album. I used it almost all. And here you can see how many times I actually changed my mind. Now, any of those tapes really would have worked, except maybe the blue one would have been too much of a contrast. But I know I was looking sort of for a sea glass effect, so that's why I went with the blue. I stapled through the entire page, so I just wanted you to see that. Keep that in mind. That was a mistake on my part. This needed one more layer, and I have so much of this cork from Studio Calico, and I love it, and it does remind me of the beach. So I'm going to do something really simple. I'm just going to line it up at the bottom. It holds down that tissue paper and adds a little dimension and shape. And then a little bit of wood pattern paper, and that completes the beach portion. Those are my two favorite photos of the beach. This one also has a lot of white space at the bottom. I could leave this photo, but I do decide to dress it up a little bit. And I'm going to add the photo that I probably took 2 seconds after that enlarged one. They're not that different, but it highlights the people, and that's what I like about it. The chipboard frame is from crepe paper. Now that photo is not cut down to the exact same size as the frame. I purposely did that for a layered effect. And then to highlight that photo even more, some cork arrows pointing to my focal point. Those stickers are not so forgiving, so be careful. Now it's still a little plain, so I'm looking for a beach theme sticker to add to the page, and I found this gold foil sticker that went perfectly on top of those arrows. A few enamel dots for a pop of color because it's so washed out and gray, and I like color, so that's why I did that part. I hope you found that video helpful the next time you go to sit down and create a mini album. I'm going to move on to the rest of the album, which I did not film. It just would have taken too long. So I'm going to show it to you in photos so you can see how it turned out. This is the first chapter after the beach, which is pool, and I used one of the die cut sheets from the capture line for the title page. More of the Amy Tangerine letters. And this is the other side of that die cut sheet. So it's got these really cool stripes and nice arrows still going down it. And that's one of the tissue papers from Glitz that I just framed out with a chipboard frame. I added some enamel dots and stamping. Here are more 3x3 pool photos that I highlighted with some puffy arrows, just to highlight what my son was doing. And there's also a little enamel dot on the other end, and I think that really highlights him in that sea of blue. In this photo, I really wanted to highlight my son, so I used some of the mini letter stickers from the capture line to do that. What I did was I punched out a 1-inch circle, and I placed it in the photo exactly where I wanted those alphabet letters to line up. And then I used it as a guide, and then I just removed that circle punch from the center there. Definitely did not do this by eye. I am not that steady, but it's a good trick to get this sort of circle, perfect circle in the center of a photo. More pool photos. You can tell we spent a lot of time swimming on this trip. The photo on the left I highlighted because it has a special story to go with it. My son really just didn't let my husband out of his sight for 1 second, so we were calling him Barney the Barnacle. That's why you see that little bee there, and the ampersand, which I just thought went really well with what I'm going to write, the story that I'm going to write down there. And then I just used some flags from Glitz and some tags from Chic Tags. And that completes all of the pool photos. Next are our Everglades photos. Now these photos don't have a lot of color. I kept it pretty neutral, the beige paper from Lucky Charm collection, and then the nice bright pop of orange in the envelope, and that's from the capture line. In that envelope will go the story of how Mom forgot the bug spray and we went to the Everglades and got bitten up. To frame out the photo a little bit, a photo overlay from Crate, some vellum tape, cork because there's a lot of wood in these pictures, and to repeat the wood element, I also lined up some of the Studio Calico wood pieces along the bottom with a sticker, and that just adds to the feel of the layout and also adds dimension to the page. I added the title with the Amy Tangerine vellum letters. I love how these letters are just see-through enough to see through the photo, but yet the title is definitely there. Now this page looks totally empty, and the reason is because we went on an airboat ride. I had my iPhone as the only camera, and I wasn't about to risk my iPhone while the airboat was moving. So I have no photos of this. But I want to journal the story because it was really important part of our trip, probably one of the most fun moments of the entire trip. And so I used that black Polaroid to sort of represent the no photo, and I'll write all around that photo. Another important part of our trip was the places that we stopped to eat. We always, on a trip, try local cuisine. We have a family rule: if the chain exists at home, we can't eat there on vacation. So I collected a lot of memorabilia. In this pocket here, I have all the different business cards, and the Eats is a die cut from Chic Tags, I believe. And I'm going to do some journaling there about how we found the red rooster, which is that business card you see up at the front. And this library pocket came from the capture line. I just used some vellum tape and some stickers and more of the arrow clips just to add a little bit of dimension and a little pop of color to all of that yellow. On the next page, I left myself a great place for journaling, and I highlighted our favorite place, which was Verdi's. We actually went back there twice, which we've never done on vacation. We loved it so much. So I have quite a bit to write about that. And I also added that little tiny envelope there because I have a receipt in there. More journaling spots. There were fantastic places to eat at our own resort, including a little fire throwing luau show, and we ate on the beach, usually at least once a day. So these are all little stories I want to get down. So I used a variety of tags from Chic Tags, and I like little snippets of journaling like this. And the envelope also has another journaling spot. Now, the very last chapter, the end of the book, is this top 10 list. I'll ask my husband and my son for some of their input so I can have their perspective on this list. And then here are a collection of all those miscellaneous stories and miscellaneous photos that didn't fit in any of the 5 chapters. I also left myself a nice space here for journaling all those little stories. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're looking for more information on how to scrapbook family vacations, I do have a workshop at 2peasinabucket.com. There are 5 instructional videos, 50 exclusive scrapbook pages, as well as organizational charts and checklists. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.